So now that you've completed all of the initial videos and understanding of at least how the brain processes and how also some of the illusions are created, we're going to move on to starting to do the questions. So this website, it's works.com. It's a really great resource, and kind of, shows images and kind of explains how color kind of works in color theory. And it's going to talk about tertiary colors and secondary colors and primaries, and it's going to talk about Itten's contrast and all sorts of things, simultaneous contrast. It's going to talk about afterburn images, those sort of things. So what I'd like you to do is just take some time, go through those questions. The way that the website works, there is a little left-hand side panel, which is each of the pages that are a part of the website. All the questions pretty much go in order. It's just to check for understanding, highlight some of the things that I think are important as you go along there. If you want to do it in a Google Doc, that might be advisable. Again, Weebly sometimes loses stuff or crashes or does all sorts of weird things. So you might want to do it in a doc, just copy and paste the pictures, or copy and paste the questions and then start to work from there. The other thing is when you get to the very end of it, there's going to be the very bottom one. It says palette picker, and I've got a quick little instruction on how to do that. Basically, what I want you to do is to do screenshots. So you're going to use those different, there's basically like a little palette, and you're going to go in there, you're going to pick different colors, and you're going to be creating 3 types of arrangements. You're going to create one that is an example of analogous or monochromatic. You're going to create another composition that shows overlap or transparency. And then the third one would be one of Itten's 9 contrasts. So you might want to take some time when you get to that and review what Itten's contrasts are. The one that is oftentimes the most confusing to people is the contrast of extension. So I'll take a few seconds and kind of explain that one. What contrast of extension is talking about is that colors have visual weight, right? So certain colors, if you kind of break them down into value, have similar weights, right? So kind of red and green, even though they're opposite colors, they have a tendency, that equal amounts of them kind of balance each other out. So we're going to have like 50% red and 50% green. And when you break those down into values, it kind of feels like they have the same weight. Whereas other colors, like let's say yellow and blue, may have very different amounts of intensity. So we might be able to have a lot of blue, like 70–80% blue, and a very small amount of yellow, or like a yellowy orange. And because of the intensity or the saturation of that color, it will draw our attention to it. So if you imagine like, a yellow, daisy against a field of blue sky, even though that the yellow is much smaller within the picture, it feels like there's a balance to that. Even though it's not 50-50, it might be 20-80. And that's what the contrast of extension is. So when you're reading or looking at that one, that's kind of what they're talking. The other ones, have a tendency to make more sense, like contrast of warm and cool, or contrast of primaries, or contrast of light and dark. So as you go through Itten's contrast, that's the one that I think is a stumbling block for a lot of people. So hopefully that will help a little bit.